Welcome to my channel, I'm Gary Wiryawan, and today I want to do a long-term review of this lens right here. This is the Panasonic Lumix 14-140mm f3.5 to f5.6. Let's go! Before we continue with today's video, if you are new to this channel, welcome, my name is Gary. In this channel, we mainly talk about photography, camera, lenses, micro four thirds and other formats, and also about guitar, home recording, music, all from the perspective of an enthusiast. I'm not a professional photographer or musician, so if you are into something that is more honest, more authentic, you should probably subscribe to my channel. And if you want to support my channel even further, please use the affiliate links down below and also the super thanks button. It will help me a lot to grow this channel into something even better in the future. Now let's continue to talk about this little guy right here, the Panasonic 14-140mm f3.5 to f5.6. So the reason why I want to make today's video is because I've been using the Panasonic 14-140mm lens for so many years, and I think it's one of the lenses that really represents micro four thirds camera system as a whole. Small, lightweight, but it performs really well and it's not really that expensive. That's the whole philosophy of micro four thirds, and I really think this is also one of the reasons why I got into micro four thirds. I want something that's really good for travel photography, but this lens ended up not only good for travel photography but also for so many other different kind of things. So hopefully by watching this video you'll be able to determine whether this lens is for you or not. So now let's talk about some basic specification of the Panasonic 14-140mm. So first let's talk about focal length of this lens, which is quite impressive in my opinion. This is a super zoom lens, so it goes from a wide angle of 14mm, which is about 28mm in full frame terms, and it can zoom in all the way to 140mm telephoto focal length, which is about 280mm in full frame terms. So quite a flexible lens, which is very perfect for all sorts of different kinds of photography needs. The aperture of this lens goes from f3.5 at 14mm, and if you zoom in all the way to 140mm, it'll go to f5.6. So not really that impressive, but also not small. So this is pretty average for most super zoom lenses in all different formats as well. This lens also features image stabilizer. It says Power OIS, so that's the designation for upper level stabilization on Panasonic Lumix lenses. And I can say right away that the stabilization works really well for both photography and video. If you are doing video works, then you can get that smooth, stable footage, and for photography at slower shutter speed, the stabilizer really helps. And also at longer focal lengths such as 140mm of this lens, the stabilizer really helps to keep you steady and stable, and you'll be able to nail the image easily without having that much shake and without having to do high shutter speed and that kind of stuff. I actually forgot to mention, but this is the Mark I version of the 14-140 Panasonic lens. There's the Mark II version, and the main difference is that this first version doesn't have weather sealing. The second version has weather sealing, and I think that's the way to go if you want something that's more robust and more resilient when you're shooting in different kinds of weather condition. Speaking of build quality, everything with this lens is pretty standard. It's not metal built, it's just plastic as you can hear. But I don't really mind plastic because plastic makes this lens lighter, and that's what I really need for travel photography. Something light but capable. If this is all metal, then probably it's going to be heavy. With this lens, with its plastic build, the weight of this lens is only 265 grams. So it's quite lightweight in my opinion for a lens of this size with this kind of focal length and performance. Autofocus of this lens, just like every other Panasonic Lumix lenses, is just impressive, especially in single autofocus. Everything is instantaneous, everything is very fast and also accurate. You'll be able to nail focus whether it's at wide angle or all the way at 140mm telephoto focal length. It's just very dependable and reliable, especially for travel photography where you don't always have that chance to recreate the moment or to revisit the location. So yeah, autofocus is very impressive. So yeah, that is the basic specification of the Panasonic 14-140mm. I really think that the strength of this lens lies in the combination of both the flexibility of the focal length and also its portability. It's not really that large, it's not really that heavy, and it can cover anything, again, from wide angle all the way to telephoto with just one single lens. So this is the perfect lens, in my opinion, for travel photography and video, where in itself travel photography is such a broad photography genre that covers every other photography genre in itself, such as landscape, portrait, street photography, food photography, and all the other kind of photography genres. So if you are looking for something that is very flexible and something that can be ready for almost any kinds of situation, then I think this is the answer. And now, after talking about the basic specification, I just want to quickly mention about image quality and also sharing some sample pictures which I'm quite sure many of you are looking for. After using this lens for more than 9 years, ever since I first started to use Micro Four Thirds, this was one of the lenses that I bought for my Micro Four Thirds camera system. Now I can finally share what I thought about the image quality of this lens. And I must say that I am very impressed. For a super zoom lens, everything is very sharp, everything is very contrasty, the colors are quite nice, and overall image quality is just what you hope for, especially for a super zoom lens. It's really above average. However, you have to manage your expectation carefully because again, this is a super zoom lens, and when it comes to super zoom lens, there's definitely some compromise, and it's no exception here. It's not pro level sharpness, I must say, if you compare this lens to my pro level Olympus 12-40mm or Panasonic 12-35mm f2.8 or any of my Panasonic or Olympus Prime lenses. This lens just doesn't cut it. The sharpness is not on that level. However, for a super zoom lens, once again, it's very acceptable. It is more than good enough in my opinion. And even when used for mission critical kind of stuff, I still think that the image quality, especially the sharpness of this lens, can really deliver. There are a little bit of vignetting when it comes to this lens, especially when you start to zoom in into longer telephoto focal lengths, but I don't think it's really that big of a deal and you can easily correct it in post-processing software. Chromatic aberration is non-existent, especially if you are using Panasonic Lumix camera bodies, and also there's a little bit of distortion, especially at 14mm. It's gonna be something like a barrel distortion, but also not really that bad. I don't think it's going to be a problem as well. And speaking about flares and ghosting, it is definitely very well controlled with this lens. I must say that it's very impressive. You can still see some ghosting or flares, but it's just not really that bad, and you have to really look for it when you want to see some flares and ghosting, which I'm quite sure not many of you want to do that. So yeah, in conclusion, if you are looking for a great travel lens with a good balance between image quality, performance, size, weight, and just overall easiness to use and flexibility, then look no further to the Panasonic 14-140mm f3.5 to f5.6. I urge you to go to the Mark II version because it has weather sealing. However, if you can only find the Mark I version, I think it's also fine. Mine right here is the Mark I version, and it's been 9 years old and it's still going really strong. If you are considering this lens, you should also consider some of the alternative lenses to the Panasonic 14-140mm. First, we have the Olympus 12-200mm, which offers more telephoto focal length with slightly smaller aperture, which is not a big problem. And there's also the Olympus 12-100mm f4, which is larger and heavier, but it has that nice constant f4 aperture. There's also the Olympus 14-150mm, which is very similar to the Panasonic 14-140, but without the lens stabilizer. And in the Panasonic world, there's also the Panasonic Lumix 12-60mm. It doesn't have the same telephoto focal length capabilities, but it is smaller and lighter. Or if you want something with larger aperture, there's definitely that Panasonic Leica 12-60mm f2.8 to f4. That f2.8 aperture at 12mm can really help in lower light situation. In this last few months, I also used the Panasonic kit lens 12-32mm combined with the 35-100mm f4 to f5.6 as an alternative to the 14-140mm lens right here. And yeah, there are some strengths and weaknesses when it comes to using this combination of lenses compared to just using one single lens. But that's going to be a topic for another video. So if you want to learn more about 14-140 compared to 12-32 plus 35-100, stay tuned, subscribe to my channel, and be ready for it in the next few weeks. All in all, I think the 14-140mm is such a good lens, especially for travel photography, and I've been getting a lot of good results from this lens, and I will continue to use it in the future for, again, travel photography or video. Or if I need something, a lens that can be very spontaneous and be ready for any kind of photography and video needs. And that wraps up today's video. So that is all for today's video. I hope that this review of the 14-140mm Panasonic lens can help you to decide whether this lens is right for you or not. So if you have any question about this lens, please comment down below and I will try my best to answer them. And also, what is your favorite super zoom travel lens? Also, don't forget to support my channel by liking this video, sharing this video, and subscribe to my channel down below. And if you want to support my channel even further, please go ahead, go to the description down below, use my affiliate links, and also use the super thanks button down below. That will greatly help my channel to grow in the future. Thank you and see you on the next video. Goodbye.